Drug cartels. Drug cartels is one of the greatest problems Mexico has to live day to day. These are organized groups of criminals that engage the illegal trade of drugs. They are primarily involved in production, distribution, and sales all around the border, even around the world. Drug cartels have hierarchies, with leaders at the top of the cartel, which are the ones that operate all the cartel. There are various levels of operatives, even from cultivation, distribution, hitmen, and even the guys that just protect the drug cartel leader. In Mexico, there are some major cartels, like Cartel de Sinaloa, Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, and Los Zetas. There are a lot of more cartels, but we'll talk about them later. All these drug cartels are known for their violence and intimidation, all associated with the use of extreme violence, including assassination, kidnapping, and brutal confrontations with rival cartels. This violence is used to maintain control in territories and instill fear in both public and authorities. The drug cartels have other activities like extortion, money laundering, and seeking fat profits and influence. First, you're gonna need a fast summary. It all started back in Mexico in the early 20th centuries with the alcohol traffic in US, but the actual drug traffic evolved during the later half of the century with the cultivation of drugs like marijuana and opium poppies. This has existed in Mexico for a long time. However, it wasn't until the 1940s and 1950s that these crops began to be produced on a larger scale, and all this for illicit markets. The 1970s and the 1980s saw a surge in demand for drugs, particularly cocaine in the US. This growing market created gainful opportunities for drug trafficking. The US law intensified the combat against drug traffic, particularly against Caribbean routes used by the Colombian cartels. Mexican traffic began to fill the void left by these disruptions. Initially, Mexican traffickers acted just like messengers for the Colombian drug cartels. However, US government actions dismantled smuggling networks. Mexican traffickers saw and grabbed the opportunity to become major players in the drug trade. They began to establish their own production and distribution networks, effectively transforming subordinate roles to dominant positions in the drug traffic hierarchy. This all leads us back to the first major drug cartel in Mexico, the Guadalajara cartel. It started when small drug traffic groups began to consolidate their operations in response to the growing demand for drugs, particularly marijuana and cocaine all around the US. This led to the formation of the cartel. The Guadalajara cartel was widely recognized as the first major drug cartel in Mexico. Its formation marked a significant turning point in the organization and operation of drug traffic all around the country. The Guadalajara cartel was first established around 1978 and 1980, led by Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, who became a prominent figure all around Mexico drug trade. He was named the Godfather. He had also led this cartel among Rafael Caro Quintero and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo. They all play a crucial role during the cartel formation and organization of its operation. A key factor that contributed to the rise of the Guadalajara cartel was its strong connection with the Colombia cartels. This allowed the Guadalajara cartel to import large quantities of cocaine to the US and facilitate the establishment of a robust distribution network. The Guadalajara cartel had a very organized structure. This led them to have a good level of coordination and effectively manage its drug traffic operation and maintain a significant influence over the drug traffic in Mexico. As we know, everything that goes up goes down. After the arrest of Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo in 1989, his capture created a power vacuum with organizations leading to internal conflict and competition among its members. Without a strong central leadership, factions began to emerge. Each compete for the control over lucrative drug traffic routes and territories. Following the arrest, the Guadalajara cartel split into several rival factions, including the Sinaloa cartel, led by Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán and Ismael El Mayo Zambada, the Tijuana cartel, led by Los Arellano Felix, and the Juarez cartel, led by Amado Carrillo and Pablo Acosta. Each of these cartels looked to establish its dominance in the drug trade, leading to wild competitions and territorial disputes. The fragmentation of the Guadalajara cartel resulted in a chaotic environment where former allies became rivals, escalating violence as they fought over drug routes and markets. Nowadays, there are a lot of cartels, but in Mexico, there are the two bigger ones right now, the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación and the Sinaloa cartel. The Cartel Jalisco is placed as the group with the largest operating margin in Mexico, since it only needs to break into 4 states to have presence through all around the country. These states are Sinaloa, Durango, Coahuila, and Campeche. These are led by Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, alias El Mencho. Then there's the Sinaloa cartel, led by the children of El Chapo, known as the Chapitos. But the past 25 of July, Sinaloa was going to receive a big turn when Ismael Mayo Zambada, co-founder of the cartel, was arrested in El Paso, Texas. The next day, people lived with fear, but some day passed and the war between Los Chapitos and La Malliza finally broke out. It has been almost 3 months since this war started, and they are doing what they can, but the violence still persists. The general attorneys informed that kidnaps, homicides, robberies has increased due to the war. Between September 8 and November 9, there have been 322 murders, and sadly, could be more. This all because they are fighting about who could keep the land and the roots of this cartel. The presence of drug cartels often lead to a climate of fear, insecurity in local communities. Cartel violence manifests in various forms, including extortion, kidnapping, and assassination. This makes fear in people for their everyday life routines and social interactions on their weekends. For instance, some business may be forced to pay protection fees to avoid being targeted, leading to a sense of vulnerability. And also, kidnapping for ransom have become a huge tactic used by the cartels to exert control or install fear. Victims can be anyone from wealthy individuals to ordinary citizens. Violence from cartels warrants business, leading to closures and jobs losses, which increase economic stability. On the other hand, cartels also create jobs, be this in some regions, more poorly regions. But cartels may employ local for various roles, even from production to distribution, even to being the hitman. This can create dependency on cartel-related income, as normal economic opportunities are scarce. Sadly, drug traffic is the 5th largest employer in Mexico. Between 160,000 and 185,000 people work for the drug cartels. Criminal groups recruit approximately 350 people per week. There is a huge problem. Most of this work that is related to the narc and drug cartels end up in deaths. And most of them are young people that get involved in the narc. Sadly, in Mexico, the narc is a culture where there are states that their young kids want to become drug traffic people when they grew up, and all this end up in bad things like murder or kidnaps. Drug cartels often infiltrate law enforcement agencies through bribery, coercion, and intimidation. Corrupt officials may accept bribes to overlook activities, to provide protection, or share sensitive information about law enforcement operations. Also, cartels don't just want a few police, they want more. And they also want control over political systems by bringing politicians and public officials. This can lead to a culture of corruption where elected officials prioritize the cartel interest over the needs of their citizens. The pervasive nature of corruption in law enforcement and politics create a cycle that makes it difficult to combat cartel influence. Citizens may become disillusioned with government institutions, leading to a lack of cooperation with the law enforcement and further entrenching cartel power. Cartels challenge the authorities of the state by engaging in violent confrontations with the law enforcement and establishing their own rules and system of control. In many regions, cartels can exert more influence than even the government institution, leading to a perceived loss of sovereignty. In areas heavily influenced by cartels, they often create parallel systems of governance. For some residents, this service may be seen as more reliable than those offered by the state. The presence of the cartels as alternative authorities can complicate community relations. Also, residents may feel trapped between the violence of the cartel and the ineffectiveness of the state against the drug cartels, leading to a cycle of dependency on the cartel governance. The entrenched power of drug cartels, combined with the corrosive effects of corruption, have created a complex crisis that requires a comprehensive, long-term approach.